All right, this is we're live. Let me see. I'm not seeing it yet on the.
All right, there it is. It has a little bit of a delay.
Yeah. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Well, I guess the show has started.
All right, let me. Okay, let's see. Hey Johnny O, how's it going, Johnny O?
Can we add Spindrift flavors to our schedule of discussion?
All right, so you have to everyone on the live stream. You'll have to excuse us. This is our first time doing a live stream, and I mean not our first time doing a live stream. Actually, we've done pretty complex live streams. This is a kind of a chill live stream, coronavirus live stream. So, yeah, doing well. Thanks for asking. So tonight, we wanted to mostly talk a little bit about thinking about your career kind of in this time of uncertainty, and then really just answer questions from people and see if we can share any of our wisdom. We've been doing a lot of thinking about how about the broader economy, what it means for developers, what it means for becoming a developer, and so yeah, excited to see what people are thinking about. So if people put questions in there, we will note them down, and then we can get to them kind of throughout the conversation. We do have some things we want to talk about. And Nimit, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or say anything.
Yeah. So I'm Nimit, and I'm one of the co-founders along with David of Fullstack Academy. We're pretty excited to be doing this live stream. I think one of our most favorite things to do at Fullstack is something we call, or I guess we don't call it, but it's called the AMAs, where we go to every single class and we do some Ask Me Everythings. We have conversations with all our students, and so it's one of our most favorite things. I hope that this will be a conversation. In the past couple of weeks, as I'm sure all of you have noticed, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world, right? And we thought we'd start with talking about some of what's going on, and then also how does that impact your careers? How does that impact the careers of programmers? We have thousands of full stack alumni who are out there, working as programmers. This is a very common question and quandary. David and I have been lucky or unlucky to have gone through two of the past recessions as programmers. The first one where we were both looking for jobs and then just working at jobs, and then the second one where we were entrepreneurs and kind of leading companies through the 2008-2009 recession, and then this one where we're as kind of educators and at a slightly different place. And so yeah, it's been interesting. Dave, have you been following the stock market lately?
Oh man, I don't want to talk about the stock market. Not pretty.
Okay.
Hey Nimit, your mic's a little hot. Do you turn down the input at all, or is it my only one hearing that?
What does that mean, hot?
It's like it's clipping. So like I don't know if you have if you can adjust how loud you are. Yeah, now it's a little bit soft.
Is it better? Or
yeah,
too soft?
Too soft. A little bit like right in the middle there.
How about that?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know about all this terminology of mic is hot.
Yeah, maybe I'm not using it right. Input gain, exactly.
There you go. That's the right. That sounds right.
So why don't we answer some questions while we since they're already here, and then we can kind of talk. So the first question is, what are our campuses doing for the quarantine? So the short answer is that it's a little bit different based off each campus. But in New York and our Chicago campus, we pretty quickly, I think, March 8th, pretty much activated our remote program. So Fullstack had a remote program back in 2017. And we kind of turned on all that capability again and moved students to a remote stance. And then I think, we thought it was maybe a little bit early, but as people have seen now, it's exponential functions hit you pretty quickly. So I think now all of New York City, I don't think New York City is in a formal lockdown, but I think people are definitely taking a shelter in place situation. The remote cohorts, I've had a chance to check on them. It's run similar to how many of you might expect Zoom Room, using our Learn Dot system, Zoom's breakout rooms for pairing and group work.
Yeah, they've been. I mean, we have had. We do have several university programs that are fully remote or hybrid already, and so at least a good deal of staff was already doing that. I won't lie and say that this was expected. I don't think anybody knew that. Even when we saw it in China happening, I think. A lot of us in the U.S. were thinking that it's not going to happen to us, which we were pretty wrong about. But we were lucky at Fullstack. We took precautions very early. We've been remote for about 2 weeks or so now.
Yeah. Let me see. Next question. Do you see or hear anything about tech companies going in hiring freeze recently? So we haven't. So I think companies are definitely in a wait and see approach this last week, right? And so they're not going on. I don't think people are declaring hiring freezes yet. We are seeing people saying things like, let's see how this plays out for the next week or so, and slow down hiring.
I actually spoke to a friend of mine who is the CEO at a recruiting software company, and they are seeing, whether you like it or not, they are seeing people put freezes on hiring plans. Not, I wouldn't say permanently, but definitely companies are in a little bit of wait and see mode to see what's going to happen before they and just reevaluate all the positions that are up there. Yeah.
All right, I think that's all the questions that we have so far. If anyone has anything, I see someone here in Seattle. Yeah, I think Seattle was hit the hardest early on. My guess is that New York City is now number one. One of the things I wouldn't want New York City to be number one for, but we are number one now. So I think one thing we want to talk about with people is just kind of our predictions for what will happen kind of in this startup hiring world, and then what I think people can do to think a little bit past this coronavirus craze, right? I think when you're in the heat of it, it's often hard to imagine life afterwards. But we've been through, I don't think we've ever been through something quite like this, but we've been through economic recessions and business slowdowns in tech, including even the .com. I remember it was pretty early in our career, but and there always is the other side. So yeah, what kick it off? We have a list of bullet points.
Well, I think we're talking about hiring freezes. Invariably we're going to see some layoffs. I remember during the 2007 timeframe when Lehman collapsed, and then in 2008 when we saw that the entire recession play out. I was living in the Bay Area at the time. And it was really shocking to see how we went from massive VC funded launch parties to layoffs and startups shutting down and VCs, pulling all funding. It happened very, very quickly, and maybe not as quickly as even the market has collapsed this time around, but it would still felt very fast. But what I learned through that time, that was actually the time that I was actually pretty unlucky that I had left Yahoo to start a company about 5-6 months before the whole thing, banking sector collapsed, right? And so I was pretty early at my startup, and then everything just collapsed. What I noticed though, as a somebody doing a startup at that time, is that the layoffs are not necessarily very. I would say like they're not performance related, really, right? Like companies sometimes have to lay off entire teams, entire divisions, and it's not just about who's not performing well or not. And so what that means is that a lot of good people are going to get laid off from companies, and I think all that means is that if you are starting something, if you are, it, so like being unemployed is not going to be a sign that you are not good, right? It's going to happen. And so I think that that's a prediction that I think we will see play out in the next year or so here, where it's just going to be that some people are going to be out there looking, and so I think that's a good thing. In an economy we just had where it was like 2% unemployment, people would be wondering like, why do you not have a job? So next trend is, I would say, if you are a developer and you're building your career, a lot of cool technologies get developed during this time. People, whether they have extra time because they're unemployed or difficult times, actually difficult times and scarcity, they force innovation in companies. And they force companies to do more with less. A lot of cool things come out at this time. So I think you'll see like a spurt in innovation just in developer tools, in techniques, in optimizations, in new services that make life easier for developers, that make things cheaper. And so as a developer, it's a chance for you to hitch your wagon to a new technology, a new framework that's coming out, that maybe will come out next year, and that you could build your entire career around. Yeah.
I know.
So, Dave,
pretty good question. So I think we can keep jumping into questions. Actually, there. Let me see. So Nimit, can you see the questions in our
yeah
in the comments?
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we're still kind of hacking around this. So how about this one? We'll do this coronavirus one. Hey, Ezra, I believe you're a student, right? Are you recent grad? So I think this is of course is the $1 billion question, is that will coronavirus cause a recession, and how deep of a recession we'll get to? Man, I don't know.
It's hard to say. You don't want to. I mean, I don't want to jinx the market by saying anything that is, how about I'll start with the. I think we can start with the upside case, right? Like there is a scenario out there that the coronavirus will pass through every city in about 2 months or so, right? So like during this 2 months, it's going to create havoc. At some point, the new cases are going to slow down. That's what we see happening in China now. Like they're getting like 10 cases a day now. And then once things start to slow down, everything will open up again. And then hopefully life resolves, goes back to normal a little bit. I think that's the upside case.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, the two factors that are balancing each other out. One is, I don't think, I mean, in our lifetime at least, anyone we've ever seen like pulling the ripcord on stopping as much of the economy as possible, right? None of us have ever seen that. I mean, even people who lived through World War II, I don't know if the economy was stopped like this, right? Because it wasn't fought on American soil. At the same time, I also think that this is going to be the most bipartisan thing of shooting every fiscal and monetary bazooka that they have at this, right? It's like, of course, I don't follow all the political winds, but everything that can be done, everything from, nationalization of industries, giving money directly to people, which I think is, kind of universal basic income, everything's going to be tried. I think there'll be those two things fighting each other, and at the same time, I'm optimistic that coronavirus itself is something that there's the entirety of human ingenuity looking at the problem right now, right? And I'm long human ingenuity, so I think that if I had to guess, I think that there will be a people right now are kind of like a max fear moment, right? Because many variables unknown, and of course, in a market, it's like everyone's reacting to everybody else, right? So I think right now people are scared, but I think at the same time, no one in government right now has incentive to not do everything they can to make the bounce back as fast as possible. So to be honest, I don't know. I think if we knew, we would be, one of those masters of the universe working for the Fed or something. Let's see, other questions. Okay, this is the one. I don't know, Nimit. I don't know if you want to win this one. T, are you someone that we know? Are you a Fullstack? Are you Fullstack affiliated? So T's question, T has good questions. So maybe T will come say hello one day. But how can a new bootcamp grad apply for coding jobs that require 3+ years of experience? So go ahead, Nimit.
I would say that I think that 3+ years of experience is, I think it's not a, like whenever somebody says they want a certain number of years of experience, they are really looking for a level of maturity in the person that they're hiring, right? And so they want somebody who is professional, somebody who has work experience, who's willing to work, who knows how to learn. I think bootcamp grad is a broad category, but if you are somebody, let me just talk about it at a people level. If you're somebody who's built a lot of software, who's built your capstone project, who's been building stuff even while you are doing your job search, you have a lot of just projects and a lot of code to show about your experience level. I remember when I was applying right out of college, I had done so many projects and just little code, explorations around. Like I remember once I wrote a little web crawler just to see how fast could I fill up my hard drive with stuff that I could crawl the web. And I think those little explorations are what people want to see, that you have that experience solving difficult problems. You don't necessarily need 3 years, 1,000 days working as a developer at a company to qualify for that job. What would you say, Dave?
Yeah, I think I think a little bit of it is also two things, right? One is that people oftentimes write those kind of job descriptions as a method to gatekeep people from a job position, right? And so I think one is, and oftentimes it's very effective, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm not qualified for this, and so they don't have to deal with kind of a it's an initial filter. But I think that the job search is something that we think about a lot, right? It's a multifaceted approach, and I think that reading the job description, our HR team is going to hate that I said this, but for me, reading the job description is like the last thing I do, right? Or if I even do it at all. Really, I think when I think about getting someone a job or getting a job for myself, I think about it's kind of like hacking, right? Like, how do you break into a system, right? And in this method, a good way, right? And most likely it's like, who are the people that you can get into, right? What are they thinking about? What are their, God, it sounds too Machiavellian, but what are their vulnerabilities, right? And I think a company's vulnerabilities is they love to talk to people who know what their problems are. So I love reading their blog. I love reading people's GitHub profiles. What issues are they diving into? So I think about how to get in via people. And then usually these job descriptions, like if someone puts a referral in for a job description, I'll show you every applicant tracking system. Every applicant tracking system is like Trello, right? You're moving down different levels of the filter. So someone who's looking at the first column, the people who just applied on the website, if it's someone who's in recruiting, they'll see, oh, not enough experience, and it might disqualify you right there. But if you are referred in by somebody or someone puts in a good word for you, you get moved right out of that column, and that whole 3 of experience thing is not even in play. So I think that's how I think about it, is how do you get into I wouldn't think of the JD as a thing that's filtering me from a job description. So I don't want people to think that, this is like art of war, but it is a little bit like, figuring out how a system works and try to get past it. So let's see.
So I think David had the really crazy art of war explanation. I'll tell you the easy answer is that, find a friend, right? Somebody that at that company, and they can help you get your foot in the door, right? They can invite you to a happy hour or something. And that's really the easiest way that you can build that bridge into getting an interview. And once you get an interview, then you're the same as everybody else, right?
That's probably like the normal human way of saying what I just said. Yeah. Okay. Another good question from Johnny O. Johnny, so not career related, but tips you could share with us on how to study difficult material other than redoing workshops and rereading material. So I have my de facto answer for this that I think is the greatest hack for learning something is to try teaching it to somebody else. And to be honest, I think every time I've struggled with something, what I will do is I'll try to find somebody who is for example, like early in my career, I was trying to study Angular, right? And so what I did was, I read through all the materials. I did all the things that I would say good studying is, right? Building notes, I would draw graph diagrams of how things related to each other, right? Because I think that is what learning is as a single player sport, is building a graph diagram of ideas that connected to ideas that you don't know. And that's why bootcamp grads often say they often phrase this as learning to learn. But what they're really doing is they're building a large graph of computer science and web development topics. And the next thing they learn, they can connect to that scaffold in a very powerful way. So I'd say build that scaffold, build that graph thing. That's single player. But then as soon as you make it multiplayer, then I'll go to Nimit and say, Nimit, let me explain this to you and see if you understand. Because I have many theories on why teach to learn is very effective. I'll give you a few of them. One is that I think teaching forces you to use your mouth or to serialize. And when I say serialize, I mean like put it into words, right? Because I don't know if people ever notice this, but like it's very easy to hold complex, unrelated, cloudy ideas in your head, right? You ever had that feeling you woke up in a dream, you remember something, but it's like this amorphous blob, right? That's kind of how you might understand something like JavaScript prototypes. So I kind of know a little bit here. I know some things are hard, some things are soft. Writing it out or teaching it forces you to serialize it into actual facts, right? Or actual sentences. So that's really powerful, is to force your brain to serialize and make concrete ideas. The second thing is that, as soon as you're doing that, you're going to realize, hey, I just said sentence 1 and then sentence 2, and I don't understand how those two are connected. I need to go figure that out, right? And so building out the teaching materials is really powerful. So I think teach to learn, writing a blog post about it, making a YouTube video about it, finding a friend. Another example of this is rubber duck debugging. Oftentimes just talking to something, even if it's inanimate, can help you understand something. And, I have many, what do you call it? Soapbox psychology or soapbox cognitive science theories. But one theory I love, and I saw raising kids, is that your kids can know ideas, they can respond, and they can kind of touch stuff very early. And the last thing they develop is speech, right? And so I think speech is the most complex thing that the brain does. So when you engage speech, it almost inversely engages the biggest part of your brain in figuring out something. So if you're a cognitive scientist, neuroscientist, and that is total bullshit, feel free to call me out in the comments. But, I'm a big believer in ideas that help me get stuff done in the world. So that's my idea. That's what I believe. So, okay. Johnny, if that's helpful, if you go to my Twitter, which is, let me put it here. My pinned tweet is why writing is so good for people who are learning, especially students at boot camps. Having 3 articles, when I Google your name and you have 3 articles about learning to code as the thing I find about you, my interest in hiring you shoots up exponentially. Okay, let's see. All right. So, okay, Jeff Kong. So Jeff has a question. How do you think tech companies will be impacted by the economic um, impact of COVID-19, especially with layoffs? So,
Tech companies actually, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of tech companies being online and often being actually the alternative to the physical option of an industry are generally not as badly hit as some of the other industries, at least so far.
yeah.
That's what we're seeing.
So I think a few things, right? One is that it is largely dependent on the type of tech company, right? Like if you're a tech company servicing restaurants right now, that would be a tough position, right? But most tech companies, and if you're a startup that's burning cash very aggressively, that's also a position that I think is, so it's hard to say, it's hard to paint tech companies as one sector, right? Because some tech companies like are sitting on tons of cash, have plenty of projects. They can easily wait out 3 to 6 months without even looking at slowing down hiring. So I think it's going to be a lot dependent on the type of tech company, the type of real economic sectors that are going to be impacted, and then those impacts, as if those are your customers for your tech company, how they will be impacted. So I think one thing I'd like to talk about is like, what should you be doing in this period, right? I think right now, everybody has like a 3 month waiting period, or not 3 month waiting period, but a 3 month kind of, I would say, time to like everyone's taking a breath right now, and so how you can really position yourself well in this 3 months. I think that's what I would be thinking about, and we can get back to some of those things later. But
yeah,
let's see. Bailey McElway. Is it risky to reach out to engineers currently working in the industry in this climate? Any similarities between now and the 2008 crash AUC? So, I guess I don't understand, why would it ever be risky to reach out to engineers? Bailey, I would love if you have a comment why you think it's risky to reach out to somebody, and so I don't just say something.
I mean, if anything, it's I think it's a great time to network as any, right? So yeah, I think, and then to the second part of your question, I think that they're let me start with quickly, like there's just a lot of differences between the 2008 crash and this one. This one is virus induced. It's not a fundamental flaw in the financial system that caused this problem. It's an external force that has shut down our economy from the outside, right? So in that way, it's very different, actually. And so that's what creates a lot of uncertainty. In the ways that it's the same is that people are getting conservative, companies are getting conservative, and they may slow down their hiring plans. They may slow down. They may have things like you just said. They may have layoffs or stress, and so I think that in those ways it's the same. Are you saying a potential layoffs or stress in relation to the first question around if it's risky to reach out to engineers?
Yeah, I think that's what he's responding to the question.
Okay, that you posed. I see. So I mean, I think even if somebody is laid off, to be honest, I think they would welcome chatting with someone and still giving good advice. You'll find that people are generally much more willing to help than you think on the outside. You just have to reach out, even famous people.
I'll say right now is a great time to reach out, because people are probably a little bit bored and isolated, right? They're sitting at home, and so it's great. Right now is a great time to say, hey, let's get together. Love to do a sip coffee and talk on Zoom chat. So I would take this opportunity to reach out to people, because they're everyone is in isolation right now, and so we all craving human communication. So that could be something. I mean, I think people have a lot on their mind, but they also, I think when humans have a lot on their mind, what we want to do is talk to people about it, right? And it's the first time we've have our as a society we're fixing something, at the same time being told don't engage other people. Thankfully, we have these kind of tools to stay engaged. And I think a little bit when Nim and I want to do this was just, selfishly for our own to connect with people, connect with our students. We really we're always inspired by what students at a boot camp are doing. And so I think for us to connect with students, possible students, people who are thinking about coding, it's a very inspiring for us too. So, all right. Okay. When choosing a job, what filters or priorities do you use? Financial strength of the employer. It's a great question. I think that, Nimit, do you want to get started on this? I'll just say that secretly, I've never actually interviewed for a job that Nimit didn't already refer me to. So I've gotten one job on my own, and then every other job Nimit has he's kind of like said, hey, we got to hire David guy, and so
sneak him in there,
sneak me in there. Yeah.
I think
I'm employee number one at Fullstack, and Nimit's employee number two. So.
That's
we should have kept that. We should have kept that trend.
So I think that the real answer is some of this depends on you, and I know that's going to sound like a cop out, but if it was me, I would heavily look at who my manager was at a job and who I'm going to be working for. It's been incredible to me how much that matters versus even some of the other external especially if you're joining as like an entry or mid-level developer, your direct manager and your team are so impactful on how your life is going to be. So I would look at that, number one. Number two, I would look at your work, like what you're going to actually be working on, and is it something that I remember when I was interviewing at Yahoo, I was actually at the same time I was interviewing with the Yahoo Music team in San Diego, the Yahoo Photos team, Yahoo Internals team, and Yahoo Maps and Travels, and Travel, and I was lucky that 3 of those teams made an offer to me, and I ended up picking the team where I was going to be working on a product which was a public product. Which means I would have the stress of, building secure software, building efficient software. I didn't want to work on an internal tools team where the standard of delivery sometimes is much lower. You can force everybody to work on the browser you want them to, things like that. And so I think, that's the second important thing I would look at is what the work is going to be. And then everything else, it's up to you, like things like pay, location, all those things they could really depend on you.
I think now's the kind of moment where we see, like, if you think about like this financial stability of the company, most of the time in your career that will almost never impact you, right? So now we kind of see when it will, but day to day, your life for 2 to 4 years might never kind of be a thing that you think about. Now, what I would say, a lot of our I think it is many people's dream to work at one of the FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and out there like Microsoft, let's see, and Apple in there. I think that the really spectrum difference, besides what I think Nimit says, like, if you're a good manager at a startup, that'll be an incredible experience. If you're a bad manager at Google, you'll hate your life every day and night, right? Like, eating at the free food cafe, like I'll tell you, like it gets old pretty quickly, right? And in fact, Nim and I do intermittent fasting, so like it's just temptation all the time when you work at someplace like that. But what I would say the biggest difference between startups and companies is the amount of white space around you, right? So in a startup, if something's not being done, if someone's not doing something, it's not being done. Right. Even in companies that are like, I would say, Series B growing pretty quickly, it's like, analytics, server reporting. It's like if someone's not doing it, like you just do it, and you get a chance to really explore that. I remember many startups that I was at, it was like, hey, I want to do this, and I'm like, who would I talk to get approval for this? This is early in my career, and they're like, there's no one who even is thinking about that whole area of a company, right? Whereas when you work at a big company, all that white space is filled out, and usually someone's territory. And not that these people are territorial, but it's like if you want to put in a different workflow on your source code control tool at Google, there's a whole like division of people working on that process, right, on that technology. And so like they're just not gonna let you do it. They're like, this is the Google way, this is how we do it. And your role will be pretty small, right? Like I remember the first joke about Google was that they hire PhDs for everything early on. And so you could be a PhD working on CSS, and it's like that's just what Google wanted to do, and they had the ability to do that. And so oftentimes it's what you work on is also can be very narrow. So I'd say it's a big trade-off. But of course, if you like that, if you'd like to really spend all your time diving deep into Google scale problems, then you're not going to get that at a startup, because a startup is always moving very quickly. I would say the other things like your work-life balance are going to be dictated by the culture of the company and a lot by your manager.
Do you want to go to the next question?
Yeah, let me see. Okay, which one do you want to do? The question on AI and ML?
Sure.
So here's a question. Should full stack engineers be investing time and effort in learning AI and ML tech skills? What other new tech skills will define the next 5 years? Blockchain?
Maybe. Was maybe the answer that you were offering? Because that's what I'd say too. So yeah, maybe. I think it's hard to know exactly what it is, but what's funny is that what may be really big in the next 5 years is probably not looking that big, at the current moment. But yeah, it could be. I think AI and ML. I think they are already quite big. It's not any one skill that you're learning. I think you wanna be. I'm personally not that familiar with the particular frameworks that are used in AI and ML, but I think that when I've spoken to AI ML engineers, the roles there are not as well defined as like front end engineer. Like what somebody who's building front end React websites is doing, right? But with AI and ML, like 99% of the time, you are massaging data, you are collecting tons and tons of data, you are writing scraping scripts, you're writing. So it's like a lot of the work is not actually AI, and there may be like the two AI scientists in the company are the ones who are actually building the algorithms, which are translating all the work that that the data team is doing, and coming up with insights. And so a lot of what companies today called AI is what we used to call personalization in 2008. We used to call it personalization. We used to call it just like prediction, right? So like suggestions. So like, that kind of stuff, it's all the same technology. I think there is a lot deeper AI that's coming out now. I think if you are interested in that, I think it's probably something that you need at least right now. I don't know, David, what you think, but you probably need some formal training if you're getting into the deep AI world.
I think that one thing I think about, like with full stack engineering, is this is generalization upon generalization, but that it is oftentimes full stack engineers are most useful in product roles because they have the ability to work across kind of a lot of different parts of the stack. And even as I'm saying this, I'm realizing there's like a billion exceptions. But so I think the point I'm making is that I think ML is in a deployment phase, right? Like we are seeing we're not in the research phase of kind of the current generation of ML. We're in a deployment phase. So we're looking at different applications where it can be deployed. So I think having familiarity with it is going to be increasingly valuable. It's like, I can take kind of a model. I can take I can there's a whole kind of back end of data cleansing, like the data pipeline and model training, like which I would say is pure like what I would consider ML research, ML work. And there's going to be a whole set of work of deploying that into kind of like production uses, right? And so I think having familiarity engineer can help you a lot with that second part. I think making the investment in learning ML is a I don't know if it's a multi-year. I think, if you want to work on the next TensorFlow, yeah, that's, kind of going to be a significant investment to really push the boundaries there. But I think there's plenty of work to do in the ML, kind of in the data pipeline that that someone who could, could learn much more quickly. Now, we haven't really seen like ML boot camps. So I think it's not like the 3 to 6 month timeline is not the sweet spot. But I don't think a PhD is a sweet spot either. I think it's probably something in the middle. All right, and this is another question. How does the Grace Hopper program work? So I know grads start paying tuition if they find a programming job. Is there a deadline for when an individual needs to find a job? So Grace Hopper program is actually one of its first of its kind, what I would call income share agreement type programs, right? So if those of you don't know, income share agreements are basically a way to kind of match when something like a boot camp, when your revenue from that boot camp, when your salary from that boot camp comes in with when you actually pay the school, right? And boot camps can do that because they're they're confident in the vocational outcomes that they're able to accomplish. So with Grace Hopper, we started that, I don't know, even now, almost 4 years ago, 2015, 2016. And the idea is that, you, once a student graduates from the Grace Hopper program, they can, so they have to hold up some parts of the bargain. They have to, be actively looking for a job in tech, demonstrate that they're doing that, and then if they're successful, then that's when it kind of activates and they pay back their portion of the tuition. And I'm not actually sure on all the specific details, but that's the general idea: is that match when you get a job with when you pay back the tuition for the program.
I'm just showing the Grace Hopper program on my screen share. If you guys want to see it, and so we do have I would say like a separate brand for the Grace Hopper program. The experience is also unique for women, and we were one of the first schools in the country actually to offer income share agreement type education. And I think today we're proud to say that we have, I think we have pretty much a 50-50 gender ratio across our bootcamp grads. So it's thanks to the great work done by the Fullstack and Grace Hopper teams. So.
All right. Okay. I think we've got a lot of great questions. I think we've written out some additional notes to talk about, but I think we're hoping to do this more often, especially during this time of isolation. So maybe we'll keep some of our thoughts kind of for our next episode. So our next Fireside chat. So I want to say thanks everyone for joining. It was really fun kind of hearing what you're thinking, and keep an eye out. We'll definitely keep, Nim and I, this is what we do every night anyway, talk to each other on Zoom. So now
just listen in.
We don't have to awkwardly come up with topics of conversation. So we'll keep keep an eye out. We'll definitely be back and do some more. And if you have questions, feel free to email us at here. I'll create one.
Or if you even have suggestions for discussion topics, we're open. If you like, if you want to tell us your favorite Spindrift flavors, right now I'm pretty stuck on grapefruit. So.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We're going to head out and yes, hopefully see some of you next time.
All right. Good night.